In today's video, we're going to talk about the brand new Nubia Z70 Ultra. This is a smartphone that's powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite. What makes this device so unique, and it is basically the way they've come to approach the camera system. First and foremost, they have a 35mm focal length camera. That's the primary camera that we have on the back, with 9 different f-stops that you're able to manually control between each one. The ability of controlling not only the bokeh, but also the amount of light coming in. Supporting one of the largest batteries on the market, over 6,000 milliamperes with an 80-watt charger that is included in the box. This is TK. Let's go ahead and check out all the features that the brand new Nubia Z70 Ultra has to offer. Let's check them out. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so you're always notified whenever we have new videos for you on the channel. Now, as far as what we get the smartphone, of course, depending on the color. There's 3 different variants. This is the one that they sent me. We have USB-C to C cable. It's a red and black cable tone to be able to use the 80-watt charger that is included in the box. As you can see here, it's using the Middle East and European plug style. It is going to be supporting the wired charging here up to 80 watts of that 6,150 milliamperes. Yes, over 6,000. And we do have an included case that is a soft rubber plastic that is included in here. But I will say, after using it for some time and putting it in my pocket, it does pick up some color. Basically, the discoloring that you're seeing here is primarily from using it and putting it in my pocket. But of course, we're here to check out the Z70 Ultra. First and foremost, yes, the design is definitely very unique. The camera bump on the back is actually around multiple cameras, but essentially it's quite a bit of a bump, and it does sit on the top left. There's a reason why it's sitting over here, and that's because we actually have a dedicated camera button. That means when we're using this device, we actually are able to focus on using it like a smartphone, but also like a camera. By pressing and holding the button, it launches the camera function, and you're actually able to use it as a half press to focus, which is very unique again. Not only that, if you jump into the Pro mode, we're also able to configure the actual aperture. This is something that you don't get to do, and many companies have tried doing this when they've actually included variable apertures, but typically don't give you that same experience. And what you're seeing there in that little clip that I'm sharing you guys, it's essentially how you see that from the other side. The actual lens itself, or the actual aperture, expands and closes depending on the configuration that you want, or if you leave it in auto mode, it'll basically base it on the light sensor that we have on the side here, as well as the dual tone LED flash. Now, we have a primary 50 megapixel camera. That's going to be the 50 megapixel at 35mm. We have a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera that's positioned right here, and a 64 megapixel camera that's a telephoto lens is positioned right here. So it's already kind of looking as a camera, an ultra camera stack on the back. Then when we look at it on the front, obviously we see that beautiful 6.85-inch display. Now, this one is a QHD at 140 hertz refresh rate, and of course gives us the ability of enjoying the fact that we don't have a cutout or an opening, essentially a visible opening for the front-facing camera. It's a 16 megapixel camera, but if you actually kind of look ever so gently in there, you can kind of see it. It's positioned obviously in there. But if you open up the camera and switch it over to the front, you'll notice that it does a little bit of a light up around it. So the camera is positioned there. And as you can see right there, it disappears right away when you actually go back to the home screen. It is an under display camera. That's something that we've seen from them for quite some time. And I appreciate that it's in there. There is going to be some limitation into what you're able to do. Again, a 16 megapixel front facing camera makes it so that pretty much they want you to live with the main sensors on the back, which they perform quite well. So before we go into the actual software and specifications of the device, the power button is a nicely accented red color button, and it is actually a textured power button, which makes it very easy to recognize it from the volume rocker as well as the camera button. Very nice, again, of course, with the color. Turns on and basically wakes up and puts the display to sleep. Volume rocker on here. The camera button is pronounced, but again, it does actually position around the fact that the main sensor is positioned slightly higher. Again, more in line with where the camera button is. Again, press, you can basically half press for focus, and of course full press to take a picture, and to activate the actual camera, just press and hold. On the top, we have an IR blaster as well as one of the microphones. On the left side, we do have a fully configurable button, which essentially means if you want to be able to configure this to launch the camera the same way the other button does, you're actually able to do so, and then you can basically turn it on and turn it off. Very simple, very easy. You can also use it to turn on vibration mode, typical to what we've seen other sliders in there, but I like the fact that they allow us to customize it, not just necessarily giving us a button that only does one thing. On the bottom, we have the bottom firing speaker, USB-C, another microphone, and a dual SIM tray positioned on the bottom. We do not have eSIM support, unfortunately, but it does support 2 SIM cards, and usage in the US is a little bit mixed. We'll talk about that in a second. It is definitely one of the bigger devices that are on the market. One thing to keep in mind, we have an in-display fingerprint sensor, beautifully positioned there, swipe gesture, gestures here, of course. As far as the operating system we're running here, this is Nebula AI OS based on Android 15. Again, the Nubia Z70 Ultra. We have 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of internal storage, and it's going to be basically the only configuration we're able to get that. It is UFS 4.0 in here with LPDDR5X on the RAM. So definitely some of the fastest options on the market. The model that I have is the NX733J. That's the one that I have here. It is technically the European model, but should work perfectly here. You just need to buy an adapter for the charger. It is the Snapdragon 8 Elite clocked in at 4.32 gigahertz. And again, as I mentioned, the displays here, it is a beautiful 6.85-inch display from corner to corner. And the resolution that we're looking here is a 2688 by 1216. So higher than 1080, but close to 1440p. So it's somewhere in between those. But again, beautiful, large, 144 hertz refresh rate and dual SIM support, no eSIM. From a configuration standpoint, a very nice and colorful setup option here. We have themes and personalization, display configuration, notification status bar, vibration button, the Nubia AI functionalities. You're able to go in there and customize the smart slider, as well as the AI translate, Nebula smart communication. There are some AI functions as well in the gallery app for a remover and customizations with an image editing. We have features in here, of course, applications, battery configurations in here, safety, location, storage, user configuration, user and account, of course. It does support Google Play services, and of course, a software update. This is running the latest version that I received, and I think it was only one update since I've received the unit itself. The home screen, pretty straightforward. Swiping on the left side, we have one of their own news aggregators here. This is basically what you're able to use directly from Nebula. On the right side, and of course, accessing the app drawer, you can customize all your information. Now, I know this is not going to be a true representation of the functions of this device, but because we are running the Snapdragon 8 Elite, this is going to be typically what you should expect. About 3,000, close to 3,000 on single score, and about almost 9,134 for the multi-score. Typical to what we've seen with Snapdragon 8 Elite devices on the market, which I appreciate the fact that this is not being underclocked or managed in a way where we're not able to enjoy the content on this. It's going to be great for gaming, benchmarking, of course, and everything. Under speed, or as far as configuration for speed, let's go ahead and say continue here. I'm going to swipe that away, and I didn't want to run you. Results. Okay. So I didn't get a chance to run this till really late, but depending where I am, at least in the Los Angeles area, I'm getting mixed connection as far as the way the system is registering and what we're connecting to. The Wi-Fi connection here, this is basically what I'm connected to right now, but this was run on T-Mobile's network here in the Los Angeles area. And I was actually clocking in pretty decent speeds at 435 down till I ran out of data on my SIM card for this device. So short answer, it does support networks on T-Mobile in the LA area. I would recommend, if you're considering buying this device, to make sure that you check the compatibility with the bands that it supports on their site before purchasing it. But let's not waste any time. Let's jump into the camera experience. Again, I feel like this device is primarily focusing on being a camera first and a smartphone, well, a great smartphone second, and we'll talk about some of the gaming experiences. There's different modes that are positioned in here, but the best one obviously is going to be in Pro mode, where you're able to customize your white balance, your focus level, but also the ability of changing that aperture that I was sharing with you guys, all the way from 1.59 f-stop all the way up to 4.0. So depending on where you are, obviously 4.0 would be when you're in an area where there's a lot more light, and or you may be bright, and then of course you want to jump all the way down to be able to get more light in at f1.59, and of course drop that basically the natural bokeh in there will be much stronger at f1.59 as opposed to where you are at f4. But customization is pretty straightforward. We have photo, video. The cameras are categorized based on focal length. The camera that we talked about is the primary camera, the 50 megapixel. It is set at 35 millimeter. You are able to basically slide between them. This is not a set focal length, but you're able to customize it to enjoy it there. You have an 18 millimeter going to be for the ultra wide. That's going to be the 50 megapixel that we have the other one. And of course, the 64 megapixel that jumps into the 85 millimeter focal length. So again, very much mirroring what you would expect from a camera experience. Video mode, very powerhouse. We can go all the way up to 8K and of course up to 4K 120. The telephoto lens will support the 4K 120, no 8K, and the ultra wide will support the 4K 60, no 120 and no 8K. Not sure why the customization, but it probably and more than likely has something to do with the speed and the performance and the type of cameras that we're looking here. That 35 millimeter camera that we're looking here is an IMX906 with OIS. So it's definitely a Sony sensor that it is very well known and is very powerful. Now we have Milky Way night, we have Pro, we have street photography, we have Stardust, and of course camera family for a few more AI functional options or assistance to be able to do maybe better production of content. Portrait imagery, of course, looks really nice. And again, you can customize the aperture, as I mentioned to you guys, going in and customizing it to the level that you want. Here, it does say that it drops to f1.0, but it is f1.1 5.6, where that's going to be the maximum, maximum opening we're able to get the amount of light in there. But other than that, the overall camera performance is going to be very nicely mirrored to what we see. The front-facing camera, and I do want to mention that a little bit, it is pretty much capped when you go into video to be a 1080p resolution video. It's a 16 megapixel camera. It is, for the most part, intended to be an invisible camera, and I think that's what they prioritized over the performance. And the reason I say this is when you start looking at some of the images that it produces, even the video, which we're going to jump to in a second there, you're going to see what happens when you're using a camera that's underneath the display, meaning it's actually sitting behind the display, and every time it actually needs to be used, the display has to create an area where it's able to see through it. So an example would be here. I turn it on, and then I go home, you can see it, and then it goes away. One thing to keep in mind, we're basically capped at 1080p 30 frames per second, but this is also one of those cameras that are hidden, which means there's a little bit of an always-on filter that seems to be showing up all the time. What you're seeing here is kind of like a glow that's going on. Again, this is a device that primarily focuses on the cameras on the back. That's pretty much what you're going to be living in. If you need to take a video or using video call or anything like that, this should be a good example of what the audio and video sound like on the front-facing camera. Switching over to the main sensor on the back. Now, this one is a 50 megapixel camera sensor capable of shooting 8K 30 frames per second. We're also able to go to 4K 120 on that sensor and the telephoto lens. The ultra-wide is only capable of doing 4K 60, but that means on the main sensors on the back, 4K 60 is across the sensors, which means you'll be able to get great video there. 8K again is a capability, but it's non-stabilized, so you definitely want to use a tripod there. This is a good example again of what the audio and video are from the main camera, the one with the variable aperture on this brand new Z70 Ultra. Now, from what you see there, essentially, one thing to keep in mind, the 35mm focal length is great, but when you're using it handheld, it's a little bit too close up to the face. And I think that's one of the things you want to do. If you're not shooting in 8K, I would recommend you jumping into the ultra wide. That will give you the best experience. A, you're in the field, and of course, B, if you want to crop in a little bit, you're not going to miss out, and it's still shooting at 4K 60 frames per second. The front-facing camera, it's wide enough, even though it actually has a little bit more of a, I want to call it like a hue, or a little bit more of a, like a starry field into it, because it seems like it not as clear or as sharp as the main sensors on the back. I feel like, again, if you're going to use this device, focus on using the best cameras, and that's going to be the ones on the back. But let's go ahead and jump in real quick to the audio experience here. We have stereo speakers and, of course, Snapdragon sound, DTX, and all of the configuration that you'd expect. But again, this is our favorite song, Alex Crindo Jumbo by NCS Release. We're going to be listening to this and, of course, checking out the system that we have in here.
Jack it up.
Sounds very nice, very clean, and it does actually have a little bit of a bass tones into it, so it does actually have sound, like a really good full sound. Should be perfect for video, conference calls, playing games as you're able to play here. And we're also able to enjoy content from this if you're watching just movies like Netflix and so on beautifully. Large, beautiful large display, and very nice and very bright. Now, when we're talking about the gaming experience on the smartphone, we actually have a fully fledged game launcher, very much in family with what we've seen with the ZTE, well, one of the other ZTE brands. It's called Red Magic, if you're not familiar with them. They're basically known for all of their hardcore gaming devices. Well, the Nubia Z70 Ultra, I, for the most part, feel like it gets the same experience and the same love. We're getting very much the same launcher. We have the ability of seeing all the configuration, customizing the different profiles in here, battery saver, overclocking, underclocking, touch prevention, running the device at 144 Hertz. You're able to customize that by just jumping into the Hertz configuration and selecting the 144. Of course, we can show the information here that shows up as essentially just basically the frame rate as well as the battery and just some extra data that you're able to basically use. Swiping from the right side on top or on the left launches this, and again, this brings a Red Magic into your pocket running the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is beautiful. Again, a lot of customizations, a lot of different areas, and this runs some of the best experiences, up to 120 Hertz refresh rate when we're playing Call of Duty Mobile in multiplayer mode. As you're seeing with that example that we're going there, it's not going to disappoint, and I think that's the biggest thing here. It's flexible enough and powerful enough that it can bounce from being a great camera phone to a great standard smartphone, and of course a gaming phone at a heart speed. This device has been dubbed as an ultra device, and what that means essentially is this is going to be great at a lot of different things. It's not really focusing on being just one section, meaning a great camera phone. It's a great camera phone, it's a great phone, it's a great gaming phone, and an all-around media experience for listening to content and enjoying that. I'll say there are certain things that they've basically decided to choose one option over the other. It doesn't necessarily change the Ultra experience. But when we're looking at the cameras, as you're looking with the images that I'm sharing with you guys, I took this with me from not only here in the United States. I went to Singapore, I went to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I'm taking a lot of family pictures. I'm using this device as a device that I would take to take pictures and enjoy that with the family. And it did not disappoint. The fact of the matter is that 35mm lens on the back, especially when you get used to using it, typically most of our lenses on most devices are not set to 35mm. You'll see them slightly different configurations or slightly wider, but the main focus here is to mimic what an SLR or a DSLR will typically go. As a good prime lens, as a good standard lens, a 35mm is basically one of the cornerstones of a camera, and it is definitely what it's doing here. It's a little bit closer to the subject, so you have to get used to using it, but once you do, it actually works quite well. And again, as I mentioned in the video when we did the hands-on experience there, if you're going to shoot video for yourself using the main sensor, I'd recommend you jumping into the ultra-wide because you're still able to get that 4K 60, but you don't necessarily have to worry about having it to be kind of close. If somebody else is holding the phone, then don't worry about it. They can frame you correctly. We have video out support in there, and we have some great experiences. Again, the images and what you're seeing there should basically give you a true sense of what you're able to do there. What I appreciate about this is also the ability of customizing the f-stop. The variable aperture of up to 9 stops that are configurable, meaning I can actually select specifically what f-stop I want to stop at. And f4.0, between you and me, is actually pretty good for outdoor photography. If you're going to go into more low lights, different things like this, jumping down to f1.59, it's actually really nice and refreshing. Typically, we don't get to that level. I've seen f1.4 before, but it's very rare to see that type of configuration. And they're definitely focusing on it here. But if there was a couple of things that I would say I wish they would have maybe done it slightly differently, I'll say this. First, yes, I wish there was wireless charging. I'm not sure why we didn't have that in there, because technically, if you think about it, we have a slightly thicker bump on the back at the top, closer to the camera stack. So if there was maybe a little bit thicker back there to give us wireless charging, that may have helped. Now, it is technically one of those heavier devices on the market, but you're going with a 6.8-inch display. You're not going for a light device. You're going for a powerhouse, and they don't disappoint. The front-facing camera, the decision to go with an invisible camera over a higher performing punch hole camera, I feel like that could have been done slightly in a different way, because they're really trying to showcase the powerhouse, and they went with an aesthetic function on the front, where we're now in a society where a lot of people love to take front-facing video, chatting, and as well as actually creating content with the front-facing camera. The ability of seeing what you're doing always makes a big difference, and not having 4K there and having a camera that is behind the display, again, aesthetically pleasing because it looks like it's a much bigger, beautiful display. I feel like the compromise, again, I'll leave that up to you. You guys can let me know if you feel like, yes, an invisible camera is much more of a priority for me than a higher performing front-facing camera. The last thing I probably will say is no eSIM support made it for me a little bit harder when I'm traveling. Short answer is I wish eSIM was supported because it just makes it simpler now with people that travel, not having to buy and go find basically where a physical SIM store is actually present. With that being said, very happy, very pleased with the performance that we get in here. The Snapdragon 8 Elite is an absolute beast. It performs very well. I love the fact that we have 144 Hz, although most games will be capped at 120 frames per second, especially for first-person shooters and racing games, so on like that. But there's a few flying games and certain things that can actually push the 144. Short answer, you're not going to be disappointed. There's a few customizations there. Again, I feel like the main system on the back with the camera button is an absolute win and makes it really, really nice. And again, I do recommend you picking up a separate case from the one they include in the box. Nothing's wrong with it. It's just this color specifically tends to pick up colors from whatever you're wearing as far as your jeans or something like that. And I like to wear jeans all the time. So the color did definitely transfer to the case. But with that being said, like and subscribe as usual. Thank you very much to Nubia for allowing me to check out the Z70 Ultra. Let me know what you guys think. Is this a device that you guys would think getting into? Is photography and having a 35mm lens, a large 6150 milliampere battery on the device that has a beautiful large 6.84-inch display powered by Snapdragon 8 Elite, a great gaming phone, a great camera phone, and of course a great smartphone all around. I'll see you in the next one.